New tonight, Appoquinimink School District is planning a second referendum in April. Plus, Wilmington loses 2 community leaders, and a rescued puppy will soon have a spot on the national stage. Those stories and much more straight ahead tonight on DETV News. Welcome to DETV News. I'm Matt Ford. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Making headlines today. Having suffered its first failed referendum since 2013, the Appoquinimink School District must make budget cuts of $400,000 before the end of the school year. Taxpayers in the state's fastest growing district rejected an $82.9 million referendum package back in December that would have built 3 new schools and raised pay for the lowest paid traditional public high school teachers throughout New Castle County. School districts in Delaware are granted a second chance at capital referendums, and Appoquinimink is planning to head back to the polls on April 23rd. Several departments are being cut 5% across the board, and initial cutbacks include technology, facilities, human resources, and curriculum. Now, if the referendum fails in April, the district will be forced to make $5 million in cuts. That's according to district leaders. In order to learn why voters rejected the first package, the district has scheduled a town hall meeting that's going to be January 22nd at 6:30 p.m. held at A.G. Waters Middle School. And in other school news, a Cape Henlopen High School student was taken into custody this afternoon for bringing a gun to school. According to a statement sent to parents around 1:30 p.m. this afternoon, the firearm was found in the student's backpack after authorities at the school were notified of the possibility. The student was immediately removed from the building without incident. It was not immediately known whether the gun was loaded with ammunition and what discipline measures the student would face. The district public relations coordinator was not immediately available for comment. The student school day was not interrupted and continued with regularly scheduled classes and extracurricular activities. State Police Information Officer India Sturgis said there was no perceived threat to students or staff as a result of the incident. Police were expected to issue a news release of the incident later this evening. And Wilmington lost 2 longtime community members this week with the passing of former City Council President Ted Blunt and the Reverend Benjamin Twin B. Brown. Mr. Blunt was a longtime city politician, educator, and athlete who served 16 years on the Wilmington City Council and 8 years as council president. He was the father of Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester. He served as a central office administrator in 3 Delaware school districts over the course of 36 years. He graduated from Winston-Salem State University and earned a master's degree from Rutgers University. For more than 40 years, Reverend Brown was a fixture on local cable television with his involvement in the creation of Channel 28, his own production company and longtime running show, The Spiritual Revival Hour. Reverend Brown funded the annual turkey drive in Wilmington before it was taken over by Norman Oliver, and for many years ran broadcast workshops for area youth. And in other news, a suspended officer with the Delaware Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Enforcement, also known as DATE, has been charged with trading cigarette cartons for drugs and money. 33-year-old Joseph Dominic faces 5 felony counts and 1 misdemeanor charge following a joint investigation by DATE and the Delaware State Police. Authorities became suspicious of how Dominic was handling controlled cigarettes back in October of last year. He was issued 30 cartons of cigarettes to provide to other law enforcement agencies, but authorities say he sold the cigarettes to a third party instead. He is also accused of illegally submitting false information in police reports in order to conceal his conduct. And the Delaware State Fire Marshal's office is investigating the origin of a fire that caused damage to 2 homes in the Porter Square neighborhood Tuesday morning. The incident unfolded when Christiana firefighters responded to a call at Dover Court just before 6:30 a.m. Upon arrival, firefighters found one structure engulfed in flames, with the fire then extending to a second home. crews had to contend with, of course, snow and ice for about 2.5 hours battling this blaze. Fortunately, no injuries were reported. The State Fire Marshal's office continues its investigation to determine the cause of this fire. And in other news, Delaware's acting commissioner of corrections has been nominated by Governor Carney to lead the DOC. Tara Taylor has been heading the department since last July, when former Commissioner Monroe Hudson stepped down. Taylor previously served as deputy commissioner at the department, where she has worked since 1997. The nomination requires approval from the Delaware State Senate. Taylor began her career with the DOC as a probation officer and served as chief of community corrections before being named deputy commissioner. And in a special celebration for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the Food Bank of Delaware marked the grand opening of its new 70,000 square foot facility in Milford after a nearly 3-year project. Over 400 people participated in the festivities, witnessing the expansion that includes additional cold storage and warehouse space for distributing over 3.7 million pounds of fresh foods and 6 million pounds of non-perishable food. The grand opening received a generous donation from Purdue, 2 truckloads of chicken, totaling over 83,000 pounds. The Milford location features a healthy pantry center functioning like a mini grocery store, an on-site cafe providing job opportunities for culinary training program grads. That will be open to the public for breakfast and lunch purchases. The facility also boasts space for a 3.5-acre garden, further enhancing its community impact. To health news now. In a response to the rising number of hospitalizations and respiratory illnesses here in the first state, BB Healthcare has implemented a temporary mask mandate for all patients and visitors. This move actually follows a similar decision by Bay Health earlier this month. While Christiana Care currently issues a strong recommendation for masking, there is no mandate in place. BB cites increasing hospitalizations and respiratory illnesses as the motivation behind the mask mandate. The duration of the mandate is contingent on local case numbers, which currently show elevated figures for flu, COVID, and RSV. Officials also highlighted the more traditional flu trajectory this year, expecting an ongoing increase in flu cases throughout the first state. COVID numbers are anticipated to remain consistent, possibly worsening in the coming weeks, while RSV cases are expected to trend down. And the Sussex County Council voted earlier this month to contribute $1 million toward a new town hall and police station in Dewey Beach that will include an in-house EMS station. The county has been leasing a portion of the current Dewey Beach Town Hall for EMS operations since 2022. County EMS Director Robert Murray called the site the ideal location and said response times have improved since the move. The Dewey Station operates 24 hours a day from Memorial to Labor Day, on weekends in May and September, and on special occasions. In exchange for the funding, the county will not be billed for building operations and maintenance for 20 years. The total cost of construction is $7.2 million. Funding is also coming from the town and the state, but $900,000 must still be raised. That's according to Dewey Beach Town Commissioner Bill Zofer. Construction is slated to begin this September and take 1 to 2 years to complete. And staying in Sussex County, in Rehoboth Beach, winter discussions are centering around traffic and parking adjustments for enhanced safety and efficiency come this summer. City commissioners are considering a draft ordinance to increase fines for incorrect parallel parking, particularly on one-way streets. The proposed fine would jump from $15 to $50. While most commissioners support it, Mayor Stan Mills says he's cautious, expressing concerns about imposing hefty fines on excited drivers who finally find parking. Commissioner Tony Sharp supports the increase, emphasizing the need to address off-season behavior that may become more common. Some residents suggest clearer signage to inform summer visitors about parking regulations. And Avelo Airlines is bringing back 2 winter discontinued destinations for passengers from Wilmington Airport. Here's what's happening. Starting May 3rd, nonstop flights to Wilmington, North Carolina and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina will operate twice weekly. Avelo's current destinations include Florida cities, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and more. The airline temporarily paused flights to Daytona Beach, Myrtle Beach, and Nashville after Christmas, and their return remains uncertain at this time. The airline will celebrate 1 year of service out of Wilmington next month. And before we leave you tonight, here's a story that will warm your heart in this frigid weather. A puppy named Vanessa, rescued from distressing conditions in Lewis, is set to capture national attention as she joins this year's Puppy Bowl. The Yorkshire Terrier mix has earned her spot on Team Rough and is also a contender in the Pup-ularity playoffs, allowing viewers to vote for their favorite pup. Vanessa's journey began at the Brandywine Valley SPCA, where she found refuge after being one of 35 neglected dogs rescued from a Lewis home last year. Despite a rough start, Vanessa is now gearing up for her TV debut. You can tune in February 11th at 2 p.m. to catch the Puppy Bowl, airing on Animal Planet. Our top story today: 2 people were found dead after a house went up in flames here in Wilmington. Police, firefighters, and hazmat crews responded to the house on West Clearview Avenue in Wilmington's Oak Terrace neighborhood around 2:30 p.m. Wednesday. There, they found 2 victims inside. Damage was contained to the interior of the home. The 2 victims have not yet been identified. Anyone with information is urged to contact Newcastle Division of the State Fire Marshal's Office at 302-323-5375. And in related news, the McDonald's on Concord Pike in North Wilmington was destroyed by fire on Thursday. The fire was reported just before 9:30 a.m. with reported smoke from the roof and from the restaurant level itself. Within minutes, smoke was pouring from the seating area as well as the roof line. Well, firefighters attempted an interior attack, but were evacuated entirely from the building as the fire burned the walls and spaces above the ceiling. It took about 2 hours before the fire was under control. Everyone inside the restaurant had evacuated, and 2 people were checked by medics. Route 202 was shut down in both directions between Fairfax and Tallyville for quite some time during the duration of the incident. Investigators were on scene interviewing people who had been inside the building. They were initially unable to enter the structure due to the extent of the damage. And Governor John Carney's State of the State address has been postponed due to the governor feeling unwell with a fever and mild symptoms. Despite being in good spirits, Carney emphasized the importance of staying home when you're sick. Out of an abundance of caution, the address will be rescheduled at a later date. And it didn't take long for Delaware Republicans to introduce several bills to increase oversight and transparency. With the General Assembly back in session last week, Republicans introduced 3 bills which would hold lawmakers more accountable and increase review of legislative budgeting and spending. One proposed law, House Bill 261, would establish the Office of Legislative Ethics for the General Assembly. The law would allow any member of the public to submit an ethics complaint. Currently, only fellow lawmakers and staff are allowed to submit complaints to ethics committees in both the House and the Senate. Also, House Bill 40 would create a Grants and Aid Committee to review applications for the multi-million-dollar program which funds hundreds of nonprofit organizations throughout the state, including fire companies, senior centers, veterans, and youth groups, as well as others. Now, a third bill to be introduced shortly would prohibit any non-government organization employing a legislator who helps write the state capital budget or grants and aid bill from receiving state funds. And staying in Legislative Hall, a bill which would nearly double benefits to families of first responders who die in the line of duty passed its first committee hearing this week. Senate Bill 202 would bring the benefit from $200,000 to $375,000. That's actually closer to the federal payout of more than $430,000. Those who would receive the benefits include police officers, firefighters, ambulance and rescue company members, and paramedics. The bill received no opposition from the 6 committee members in attendance and has wide support among Democrats and Republicans. Moving to the federal delegation now, U.S. Senators Tom Carper and Chris Coons are urging the federal government to speed up the ban on menthol cigarettes. In a letter to the Office of Management and Budget, they both expressed concern over the delayed release of the rule, now expected in March 2024, despite the FDA's proposal in April of 2022. Coons and Carper say, despite the documented public health impacts of menthol cigarettes, with advertisements largely targeted at Black consumers, formal action by the FDA has been stalled for over a decade now. The agency first sought to regulate menthol cigarettes back in 2013, announcing in 2019 it was considering a ban. Well, in 2022, the FDA said it intended to establish and enforce a ban. Both senators emphasized the public health impact and highlighted support from organizations such as the American Academy of Pediatrics, the NAACP. The FDA assured that finalizing the ban is a top priority of theirs. Currently, it's in the last step of the Office of Management and Budget for review. And Delaware's famed witty road signs that we all love are facing a challenge as new guidelines from the U.S. Federal Highway Administration tighten restrictions on humor in traffic control messages. DelDOT, known for signs like Baby Yoda uses a car seat, faces federal recommendations emphasizing simplicity. Despite the 2026 deadline for states to adjust them, DelDOT remains undeterred, citing positive public feedback on safety-themed messages. Some drivers appreciate the signs as a bright spot on drives, but the federal rule restricts humor on changeable message road signs due to potential misunderstandings, they say. The federal government gives states 2 years to comply, warning of potential funding loss and legal consequences for non-compliance. Studies conflict on the effectiveness of humorous signs, while DelDOT's creative approach since 2017 faces potential challenges under the new guidelines. And speaking of driving, law enforcement is ramping up patrols on Delaware's roads to tackle distracted driving and ensure seatbelt use. The occupant protection and distracted driving high visibility enforcement effort began on January 15th, and it's going to run to February 12th. Despite a decrease in fatalities from 2022 to 2023, the goal of 0 deaths on Delaware roads remains a top focus. In 2023, Delaware achieved a record seatbelt usage rate of 93.9%, yet 42 people died and 279 were injured due to not wearing seatbelts during crashes. Distracted driving, a leading cause of crashes in the United States, resulted in over 32,000 deaths from the years 2012 to 2021. The Delaware Office of Highway Safety emphasizes seatbelt habits and distraction avoidance, encouraging everyone to buckle up for safety. The Office of Highway Safety also highlights an upcoming car seat law that's going to be effective June 30th of this year, emphasizing occupant protection for all ages. For further details on the law, you can visit ohs.delaware.gov/carseat. And the president of Delaware State University has taken some issue with comments from Elon Musk about the quality of airline pilots graduating from historically Black colleges and universities. The world's richest man said last week that he was concerned aviation programs at HBCUs are producing fewer qualified pilots, potentially compromising airline safety, he says. As one of the nation's largest producers of African-American pilots in its aviation program, as you can imagine, this did not sit well with DSU President Tony Allen. He initially said that he did not want to dignify the comments, but felt a need to defend DSU from what he called, quote, attention-seeking noise. The DSU aviation program, established back in 1987, currently has 110 professional pilot students and 47 aviation management majors. Sticking with education news now, the Sanford School has just received the largest individual gift in its 93-year history. The private school in Hockessin will use the $1.5 million donation from alumni Kenny Mitchell and his wife Heather to launch the Mitchell Family Scholars Program. The fund is designed to strengthen the school's commitment to affordability and diversity. Mitchell, a board member at Sanford, serves as Global Chief Marketing Officer at Levi Strauss & Company. The scholarship will be awarded to one student and will pay for all 4 years of the upper school experience. Tuition for the upper school is currently $31,000 per year. And turning to weather now, while the first snow accumulation in 2 years delighted school children and sledding enthusiasts alike, many of you may not want to hear that Delaware is slated to be hit with another winter storm on Friday. But don't worry too much. The worst of it is just going to miss the first state. That's according to the National Weather Service. Projected snow totals call for less than an inch of snow and up to 4 inches in northern Delaware. The state is under a winter weather advisory starting midnight Thursday, and that's going to go through 10 p.m. on Friday night. And before we leave you tonight, many of us have walked through the doors, and if not, well, we've certainly driven by the historic Victorian building. On January 27th, the Delaware Children's Theater will mark its 50th season with the 50th anniversary Wonderland Gala. The event, themed around Wonderland Alice's Rock and Roll Adventure, honors the legacy of John and Marie Swijeski, who had stewarded the theater for decades. The gala will feature dinner, dessert buffet, a theater history video, and a musical review of favorite songs from the past 50 years. The Children's Theater is inviting alumni, patrons, and anyone that's connected to the Delaware Children's Theater to join them in the celebration. The historic building itself, designed by Minera Parker Nichols. She's the first independent woman architect in the United States. She'll be highlighted. Now, to purchase tickets or to learn more, you can simply head to dechildrenstheater.org. And that's going to do it for tonight's edition of DETV News. Be sure to like and follow us across your favorite social media platforms. And for a look at what's happening all across the state of Delaware, take a look at our website. That's detvch.com. With tonight's news, I'm Matt Ford. I'll see you again right here next week.